Bonjour. I'm sitting in a sunny mall parking lot and waiting for Mr. C. He's got an appointment, so when he comes out, I will just be waiting. I brought my book to read, so I started this chapter called A Mother's Work. So I thought I'd read a little bit out loud and then read to myself for a little bit after that. A Mother's Work. I wanted to be a good mother, that's all, like Sky Woman maybe. Somehow this led me into hip waders filled with brown water. The rubber boots that were intended to keep the pond at bay now contain it, and me, and one tadpole. I feel a flutter at the back of my other knee. Make that 2 tadpoles. When I left Kentucky to go house hunting in upstate New York, my 2 small daughters gave me an explicit wish list for our new home. Trees big enough for tree forts, 1 apiece. A stone walk lined with pansies, like the one in Larkin's favorite book. A red barn. A pond to swim in. A purple bedroom. The last request gave me some comfort. Their dad had just pulled up stakes, left the country, and us. He said that he no longer wanted a life with so much responsibility, so the responsibility was all mine. I was grateful for that. If nothing else, I could at least paint a bedroom purple. All winter long, I looked at house after house, none of which made sense for either my budget or my hopes. Real estate listings, 3BR, 2B, raised ranch, landscaping, are pretty thin on vital information like trees suitable for tree houses. I confess that I was thinking more about mortgages and school districts and whether I was going to end up in a trailer park at the end of the road, but the girls' wish list surfaced in my mind when the agent drove me to an old farmhouse surrounded by immense sugar maples, 2 with low, spreading branches, perfect for tree houses. This was a possibility, but there was the matter of sagging shutters and a porch that hadn't seen level in half a century. On the plus side, it sat on 7 acres, including what was described as a trout pond, which was only a smooth expanse of ice surrounded by trees at the time. The house was empty, cold, and unloved, but as I opened doors to the musty room's wonder of wonders, the corner bedroom was the color of spring violets. It was a sign. This is where we would fall to earth. We moved in that spring. Not long after, the girls and I cobbled together tree forts in the maples, 1 apiece. Imagine our surprise when the snow melted to reveal a flagstone walk overgrown with weeds leading to the front door. We met the neighbors, explored the hilltops with picnic lunches, planted pansies, and started to put down the roots of happiness. Being the good mother, good enough for 2 parents, seemed within my grasp. All that remained to complete the wish list for home was a swimmable pond. The deed described a deep spring-fed pond, and 100 years ago it might have been exactly that. One of my neighbors, whose family has been here for generations, told me that it was the favorite pond in the valley. In summer, after haying, the boys would park their wagons and hike up to the pond for a swim. We'd throw off our clothes and jump in, he said. The way it sits, no girls would be able to see us, buck naked as we were, and cold. The spring kept the water icy cold, and it felt so good after working hay. We'd lie in the grass afterward just to warm up. Our pond nestles in the hill up behind the house. The slopes rise around it on 3 sides, and a copse of apple trees on the other side entirely shield it from view. At its back is a limestone cliff where rock was quarried to build my house more than 200 years ago. It was hard to believe that anyone would dip even a toe in that pond today. My daughters certainly would not. It was so choked with green that you could not tell where weeds left off and water began. The ducks didn't help. If anything, they were what you might politely call a major source of nutrient input. They were so cute in the feed store, just downy yellow fluff connecting outsized beaks and enormous orange feet waddling around in a crate of wood chips. It was spring, almost Easter, and all the good reasons not to take them home evaporated with the girls' delight. Wouldn't a good mother adopt ducklings? Isn't that what a pond is for? We kept them in a cardboard box in the garage with a heat lamp, closely watched, so neither box nor ducklings would ignite. The girls accepted full responsibility for their care and dutifully fed and cleaned them. I came home from work one afternoon to see them floating in the kitchen sink, quacking and dabbling, shaking water off their backs while the girls just beamed. The condition of the sink should have given me a clue of what was to come. For the next few weeks, they ate and defecated with equal enthusiasm. But within a month, we carried the box of 6 glossy white ducks up to the pond and released them. They preened and splashed. All was well for the first few days, but apparently, in the absence of their good mother to protect and teach them, they didn't have the essential survival skills for life outside the box. Every day, there was one less duck. 5 remained, then 4, and then finally 3 who had the right stuff to fend off foxes and snapping turtles and the marsh hawk who had taken up to cruising the shore. These 3 flourished. They looked so placid, so pastoral, gliding over the pond, but the pond itself began to get even greener than before. They were perfect pets until winter came and their delinquent tendencies emerged. Despite the little hut we made for them, a floating A-frame lodge with a wraparound porch, despite the corn we showered around them like confetti, they were discontent. They developed a fondness for dog food and the warmth of my back porch. I would come out on a January morning to find the dog bowl empty and the dog cowering outside while the 3 snowy white ducks sat in a row on the bench wiggling their tails in contentment. It gets cold where I live, really cold. Duck turds were frozen into coiled mounds like half-finished clay pots solidly affixed to my porch floor. It took an ice pick to chip them away. I would shoo them, close the porch door, and lay a trail of corn kernels back up to the pond, and they would follow in a gabbling line, but the next morning they'd be back. 8 minutes. Are we vested and interested in what's happening with the ducks? Winter and a daily dose of duck splats must freeze up the part of the brain devoted to compassion for animals, for I began to hope for their demise. Unfortunately, I didn't have the heart to dispatch them, and who among our rural friends would welcome the dubious gift of ducks in the dead of winter, even with plum sauce? I secretly contemplated spraying them with fox lure or tying slices of roast beef to their legs in hopes of interesting the coyotes that howled at the ridgetop. But instead, I was a good mother. I fed them, rasped my shovel over the crust on the porch floor, and waited for spring. One balmy day, they trundled back up to the pond, and within a month they were gone, leaving piles of feathers like a drift of light snow on the shore. The ducks were gone, but their legacy lived on. By May, the pond was a thick soup of green algae. A pair of Canada geese had settled in to take their place and raised a brood under the willows. One afternoon I walked up to see if the goose babies had sprouted pin feathers yet, only to hear a distressed quacking. A fuzzy brown gosling out for a swim had gotten snared in the floating masses of algae. It squawked and flapping its wings trying to get free. While I tried to think of how to rescue it, it gave a mighty kick and plopped up to the surface where it began to walk on the algae mat. That was a moment of resolve for me. You should not be able to walk on a pond. It should be an invitation to wildlife, not a snare. The likelihood of making the pond swimmable, even for geese, seemed remote at best. But I am an ecologist, so I was confident that I could at least improve the situation. The word ecology is derived from the Greek oikos, the word for home. I could use ecology to make a good home for goslings and girls. Like many old farm pond, mine was the victim of eutrophication, the natural process of nutrient enrichment that comes with age. Generations of algae and lily pads and fallen leaves and autumn's apples falling into the pond built up the sediments, layering the once clean gravel at the bottom in a sheet of muck. All those nutrients fueled the growth of new plants, which fueled the growth of more new plants in accelerating cycle. This is the way for many ponds. The bottom gradually fills in until the pond becomes a marsh and maybe someday a meadow and then a forest. Ponds grow old, and though I will too, I like the ecological idea of aging as progressive enrichment rather than progressive loss. Sometimes the process of eutrophication is accelerated by human activities. Nutrient-rich runoff from fertilized fields or septic tanks ends up in the water, where it supports exponential growth of algae. My pond was buffered from such influences. Its source was a cold spring coming out of the hill, and a swath of trees on the uphill side formed a nitrogen-grabbing filter for runoff from the surrounding pastures. My battle was not with pollution, but with time. Making my pond swimmable would be an exercise in turning back time. That's just what I wanted, to turn back time. My daughters were growing up too fast, my time as a mother slipping away, and my promise of a swimming pond yet to be fulfilled. Being a good mother meant fixing the pond for my kids. A highly productive food chain might be good for frogs and herons, but not for swimming. The best swimming lakes are not eutrophic, but cold, clear, and algiotropic, or poor in nutrients. That's 12 minutes. Which, yeah, that's a pond. I know. With the big fish tank that we have, and we had that incident where, because Neil takes care of that. And he hadn't flushed the water in a while, and it turns, in essence, I guess it turns sour, and we had like 8 fish, and within like a day and a night, 3 or 4 of them died. I mean, it was sad, and he took a day off work to work, to get it all cleaned out, and it just, there was not enough filtration, and they just they were starved for oxygen in there and so forth. But I guess, the life sense of sometimes you just gotta scrape out the old stuff and filter in the new, and then it gets layered again, I suppose. But I don't know, it's just kind of trying to reach for what the life lessons of that life can be, and the determination of being a mom, and always doing what you can to make those requests and wishes reality, when it's in your creative power to do so. So I'm just gonna keep reading, probably out loud, but not on video the whole rest of what I'm gonna be doing, because it's gonna be probably another 20 minutes or more. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to hear me read to them for that long, I'm sure. But be much for listening, and it's exciting times because the washing machine is dead. We brought it to the little graveyard. Pat knows this morning they gave us $16 for the scrap, but yeah, Mr. C tried to fix it. He bought a new part. He thought the bearing was a part of the problem, but they had more problems than that after he tore into it. And so now we are waiting news from Neil's brother Dirk works at ABC Warehouse, so we're gonna see if he can get us a good deal on a new machine. But in the meantime, while that corner is partially vacant, we're going to do some cleaning and painting, and I can extend the wall around the corner to do some more Mamo Mat art. I'm excited to do that. I've been wanting to finish that corner. So yeah, we got some little indoor project. Wonder Gem is practicing this afternoon, so we'll have to kind of do those things in between. But yeah, it's not a rainy day, but I think it's going to rain later too, so let's make the most of it. I hope everyone else is making the most of it. Look at my shiny white hair. They're shooting stars. Alright, miigwech. Bama pi kawabaman.